Welcome everyone to the closed session portion of the city council meeting. I am now calling this meeting to order. The time is now 5:30 p.m. Madam Clerk, can you please take roll call?
Councilmember Gama,
Here.
Councilmember McQueen Lejeune,
Here.
Councilmember Hernandez, Councilmember Hernandez, can you hear me?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Perez. Here. And Mayor Martinez.
Present. There might be an echo. I don't know if they're in the same room or not, but nonetheless, we will continue. We will now hear public comments. Zoom participants, please use the raise your hand feature. If you would like to comment, commenters will have 3 minutes to provide comments. Madam Clerk, does anyone have a public comment for tonight?
No public comments for closed session.
Okay, thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Can you please read the closed session item into the record?
Absolutely, Mayor Martinez. We have one item of business for closed session tonight, and that is conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, Subdivision D1. The case in question is City of Port Hueneme versus Dario Pini et al., and the Ventura County Superior Court case number is listed in the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Do any council members have any conflicts to disclose for the listed closed session agenda item?
I have a question. I think I am within 500 feet. The circle goes right over not the entire property, but some of the property.
If you are within 500 feet, my recommendation would be to recuse yourself based on proximity to residents.
Okay, I'll recuse myself from the closed session. I have a potential financial conflict being that I live within 500 feet of the property. Would you like me to put that on the record, on the microphone? Okay. Yeah, I'm going to recuse myself from this closed session matter because I have a potential financial conflict. I live within 500 feet of the property.
Okay, so we're gonna have Councilmember Gama recuse himself, and council will recess to closed session. The time is now 5:33 p.m. Welcome everyone to the City Council regular meeting. I'm calling this meeting to order. The time is now 6:30 p.m. Can you all please stand and join me for the flag salute? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you please take roll?
Councilmember Gama,
Here.
Councilmember Hernandez. She's not with us right now. Councilmember McQueen LaJean,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Perez,
Here.
and Mayor Martinez.
Present. And tonight's inspiration will be presented by Councilmember McQueen LaJean.
Good evening, everyone. My inspiration tonight, I was thinking over the last couple of weeks about the time that we are in right now. And, you know, we have our 75th anniversary that's quickly approaching. And I'm thinking about history, right? History. And so as I was thinking about that, I just wanted to take a moment to talk a little bit about, to honor really the National Women's History Month, and to honor all the women who have contributed to our history in our community and those who have paved the way for us here today and for those who will follow. And finally, for those who have made history that will never be written down anywhere, that will never be written in books. And when I say that, I mean, you know, the first time things we do, even in our families, the first to graduate high school, the first to graduate college, the first to open a business or to serve your country, or a scholarship to school, or an athletic championship or a goal, or just being an honor roll. So when I think about that, whatever it is, I just implore those who have, who might minimize sometimes those efforts. And I just implore folks to just think about moments, think about how they might be playing out for others. Maybe someone else is motivated by them. Maybe someone has greater determination because of them. And it may even create a new belief system that enables us others to see possibilities that they may not have seen before. So just want to implore those who have done the first in their family lives, as relates to your own personal goals, as relates to your professional life. Just know, just as others have come before us and have planted some seeds and some paths for us, we can also do them for others. And it doesn't have to be anything really big, just something that others can look up to and forward to. Thank you.
All right. Nicely said, Councilmember McQueen LaJean. Celebrating National Women's History Month. Mr. City Attorney, can you please provide the closed session report?
Thank you, Mayor Martinez. There was no reportable action taken in closed session tonight.
Okay. So we will now hear public comments not pertaining to items on the agenda. Zoom participants, please use the raise your hand feature if you would like to comment. Commenters will have 3 minutes to provide comments. This process will be the same for comments pertaining to each agenda item. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments tonight?
Yes, Timothy Fergal.
Good evening, Mayor Martinez, Mayor Pro Tem Perez, esteemed council members. I'd like to provide you with a brief update on library services to the community from the Ray D. Pruder Library during the month of March. I'd also like to take a moment to thank Councilmember McQueen LaJean for becoming a friend of the library. We really appreciate your support. The library is currently undergoing a system-wide update, which we anticipate will finish on Thursday, March 23rd. The update will allow us to make improvements to our website and allow patrons to more easily discover materials through our online catalog. On March 9th, we resumed our monthly Mystery Book Club, The Final Chapter, which takes place at 2 p.m. on the second Thursday of the month. Anyone is welcome to join. Please feel free to contact the library for more information. On Thursday, March 16th, I attended the Liberty Housing Expo outreach event at the Naval Base to help connect our service members and their families to information resources and information about the community. On March 16th, I attended an open house at E.O. Green Junior High School where my staff and I connected with 70 students and their families. Next on our upcoming calendar of events, the library will be attending open houses at the Julian Hathaway Elementary School and the Sunkist Elementary School on March 21st. On Thursday, March 23rd, we will be attending Literacy Night at Parkview Elementary School. Saturday is the City of Port Huenemi's 75th anniversary celebration, and we are happy to have the mobile library participating in the parade. We'll also have a booth available with crafts, so please feel free to stop on by. On Tuesday, March 28th, we will be visiting another school open house, this time at Haycox Elementary. Local teen author Michaela Ellis will be speaking at the library on Saturday, April 1st. She's a 12-year-old author and is speaking about her book, Autism Over the Years, and sharing her experiences living with autism. We'll be having our very own Mayor Martinez join us on April 4th at 10:30 a.m. as a guest reader during our spring-themed children's storytime event. As part of the County of Ventura's 150th anniversary celebration taking place this year, I'm currently looking for a speaker to present during the month of May on the history of Port Hueneme. Stay tuned for more details about that. I'm also currently meeting with representatives from the California Emerging Technology Fund and the Affordable Connectivity Program to discuss strategies to improve high-speed internet access to community members. Thank you again for your time and for your service to the community.
Thank you. Do we have any more?
The
Yes.
other comment is a written comment from Jacob Marquez. Hello, City Council and City staff. My name is Jacob Marquez Pantoja. Like the majority of the public, I was extremely excited and glad to hear the news that the city had received the grant for the Bubbling Springs Revitalization Project. The fact that there is a set deadline is also great, as it will ensure the project is completed in a timely manner and will yield real results. Personally, I am most excited about the planting of the locally native plants as described in the plant palette already approved within the Parks Master Plan on which this project is based. In relation to this, I think that the landscaping portion of the project should be carried out only after the updated plant palette and landscaping guidelines are completed, as I don't think anyone wants any more breakage-prone and water-needy coral trees or eucalyptus trees planted. Lastly, with this project, if we could perhaps make a new task for maintenance staff to remove pieces of plastic litter in and around the creek, that would be amazing and extremely simple, since although it is problematic and a pollutant, it is not such a quantity that one or two people cannot do so in an hour. If we are to continue to use our only local creek as a drainage channel as well, then the least the city can do is keep it clean. We are all fortunate to have this project come to fruition at last, but we must also make sure to be able to maintain it and care for it as well. That is all. Thank you. And that concludes the public comment for
Okay.
Jeff.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're now going to move on to agenda approval for the City Council, but before we do that, I'd like to mention that the consultant asked if item number 5 can be moved to the end of the presentation after item 7. So if I can have a motion and a second to approve the agenda with moving item number 5 after 7.
Move to approve.
Which item are you talking about, presentations or?
Yes, presentation number 5, Clean Power Alliance presentation was asked if they can be moved after the 7th presentation. So they're still going to be staying within the presentations, but just asked to be at the end.
Okay, now I was going to ask if we could move the public hearing for the styrofoam. If we can move that up too, because I know some people are coming and it's the very last item on our agenda. So.
If you were asking if I've received public comments for it, I have not yet.
Okay. We have
Well,
so I'd like to make a motion to move item 5 of presentations behind item 7 and also move item 17 forward after the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Calendar?
it's right after the consent
Yeah.
calendar, so it's the
There
only
is no
item.
business
It's-
item.
So there's no items before that. So I think it should be fine. These are all part of the consent calendar, all of these.
Okay, well, I'll withdraw my motion and restate to make a motion to move item 5 behind item 7 in presentations.
I'll second.
Okay.
Councilmember McQueen Lejean has her hand raised. I'm not sure if she's trying to comment.
Yes, having a real difficult time hearing you, you also, I'm not really sure if you're speaking in the mics or if we need to turn them up just a little bit.
We're gonna restate your motion so she can hear it.
Would you like me to restate the motion?
Yes, please, and I can hear you just fine now.
We're making a motion to move item 5 in presentations behind item 7.
Okay.
Okay.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Perez.
Yes.
Councilmember Hernandez,
Yes.
Councilmember McQueen Lejean,
Yes,
and Mayor Martinez.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, we've approved the agenda for today. Do any members of council have any conflicts of interest to disclose for any item on the agenda? All right, hearing none. We will now recess the city council meeting and call to order the Housing Authority special meeting. It is now 6:42 p.m. Madam Clerk, can you please take roll call?
Board Member Brown,
Here.
Board Member Blackwell.
Here.
Board Member Stephen Gama,
Here.
Board Member Hernandez,
Here.
and Board Member Martha McQueen Lejean,
here.
and Vice Chair Perez,
Yes, here.
and Chair Martinez.
Here, present. Okay. We will now move to hear public comments pertaining on items not on the Housing Authority agenda. Zoom participants, please use the raise your hand feature if you wish to comment. Madam Clerk, are there any public comments?
No public comments for Housing Authority.
Okay, we will now consider items on the Housing Authority consent calendar, which will be enacted in one motion unless an authority member has a request to remove an item for the discussion.
I have a couple of questions, not really, it's not a discussion. So I'm open to going forward with the motion, then asking the questions if that's okay.
Move to approve?
Second, but I thought Councilmember McQueen Lejean made a motion. So- Okay, second.
Vice Chair Perez,
Yes.
Member Gama,
Yes.
Member Brown,
Yes.
Member Blackwell,
Yes.
Member Hernandez, Member Hernandez,
Yes.
Member Martha McQueen Lejean,
Yes,
and Chair Martinez.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, Martha, Councilmember Martha McQueen, you had some questions?
yeah, just a couple of questions. I guess I was, in reading the agenda, when I came to reading the information, I was kind of surprised to see that it's been 6 months since, I guess there was a housing authority meeting. Is that normal? And the reason I say that is because the minutes are dated September 19th. So that was one, and connected to that is number 2 is looking at the register of disbursements. I believe it was like 70 pages, and I'm just concerned that I personally will miss something if I'm reviewing 6 months worth of data. So if I've mistaken, so I'd like someone to tell me that.
Director Basua is coming up to answer your questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. So the Housing Authority has maybe 2 or 3 times a year items that really need to come to this commission. So we've had some meetings canceled just because we just did not have any items on the agenda to present to you. If it's the wish of the board, we can bring just the financials every month.
Okay. And so I would imagine I was under the impression that these meetings were monthly. And so we would be reviewing, for some reason, they were established to be monthly. I guess that's the point I'm trying to get at. And the idea that we haven't had one in 6 months, it concerns me somewhat in that I feel like maybe, we're missing something, or we're not having an opportunity to review on a more regular basis. And so this is a learning for me. And so that's why I'm asking the question. So if the board is saying if there's nothing to discuss for 6 months, then that is okay, then I'm okay with that. But I just wanted to understand that.
We will be having a public hearing in the month of May or June that will be coming to this commission. That is the biggest item that the Housing Authority does. Other than that, you will probably see us up here reporting on things that might be of benefit to the board to know. But other than that, we just have our financials that come to you. And like I said, we can do those on a monthly basis.
And Councilmember McQueen, this is Kevin Spalding. If I could add a little something, the consent calendar and the register of disbursements is a receive and file item. It's essentially just a notification that things have been paid. The approval and receive and file of it by council is usually just a formality.
Okay.
Thank you, Director Basua. We'll now move on to Housing Authority business item number 3, adopting of amended Housing Authority budget for fiscal year 2022-2023. Will staff please present the report?
Good evening, staff, board members, and members of the public. I'm presenting the amendment to the fiscal year 2022-23 budget for the Housing Authority tonight. You don't have the presentation?
Everyone, please be patient with us.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Again, tonight, so there should be a staff report that details a lot of the information that I'm going to cover tonight. But I wanted to go through these slides to present to you the amendments that we're proposing to the Housing Authority. And this is a summary of conventional housing and a summary of the revenues that were adopted for fiscal year 22-23, as well as the expenses, adopted expenses, and proposed adjustments, and then the amended budget. And so for revenues, the amount of revenues that were adopted, this is for conventional housing, was $1,153,079. The proposed adjustments is $289,732, $289,732, for a proposed revised budget of $1,442,811. And most of the adjustment is $225,000 related to a mod grant that we just got approved. So those are additional revenues that are going to be coming in, and we expect them in this fiscal year. And then we're also seeing increases in the revenues from cell towers, and that's an additional $40,000. So that's most of that $289 that you see there as proposed adjustment for revenues. And then if you take a look at the expenses, we had initially $1,577,580. We're requesting proposed adjustments of an additional appropriation of $109,769 for a total amended budget of $1,687,349. And the additional adjustments, it's a number of things, $50,000 for tables for the break room and appliances at Mar Vista. We're seeing increases in utilities, electric with all of the inflation factors. So we're increasing that budget by $25,000, $7,000 for audit fees, and $20,000 just for ongoing maintenance for the remainder of this fiscal year. So that makes up the $109,769. When you look at the bottom line, that shows you the surplus and or deficit for conventional housing. We started off, the adopted budget was projecting a deficit of $424,501. After these adjustments, the revenue is offsetting some of the additional expenditures that we're requesting, but there is still a deficit at the end of the fiscal year of $244,000, $244,538. And then on the next slide, I have the same summary, but this is for Section 8 housing. And again, the revenues that were adopted were $3,767,659. We're adjusting revenues by a proposed amount of $46,039 for a revised budget of $3,813,698. And that $46,000 is really additional revenues coming in from the administration fee for administering the program. No changes to expenditures for Section 8. So at the end of, again, the same bottom line surplus deficit, the adopted budget reflected a deficit of $128,177. We're not looking to reduce that. It's still a deficit, but it's $82,138. And one thing I wanted to point out, these numbers are excluding any capital expenditure projects for Housing Authority. So this is really just operating budget. Again, the Housing Authority's budget is based on the Housing Authority's plan to provide services to the housing participants, and based on what we are looking at today, proposed revenues for the rest of this fiscal year. And so we're looking, any questions? I think that was my last slide is really a Q&A slide, but it's not coming up.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Acero. Does the authority have any questions for her? Johnny?
I didn't hear clearly, so thank you. I didn't hear clearly, so the cell towers, I think you said it was 40,000 or something, but does that come out of the housing money?
The cell towers is additional revenue that we're projecting
the
to
revenue that
receive
comes in.
from the
Okay, I
cell
understood.
towers.
Okay, I didn't
Yeah.
hear well. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions? I did have a question. Is having a deficit normal for the Housing Authority?
We should not have a deficit. We should have a balanced budget. But again, we're continuing to look at it because we did start the year off with a deficit. And so that's something that staff will look at to address the deficit and obviously incorporate all of the program services that housing provides.
Is there a plan to get back to normal?
There is a surplus for conventional housing in the fund balance. So this is just the deficit for the year.
All right, thank you, Ms. Acero. Are there any public comments regarding this item, or Councilmember Gomez, do you have a question?
Following up on the deficit, so, does the housing authority have like a general fund like we have? So like if we incur a deficit, then we transfer funds from the general fund to
Exactly.
balance the budget?
Yes, so this is the deficit for the fiscal year. So it would, at the end of the fiscal year, any deficit, if there is a deficit as we're planning, it would be funded by the fund balance.
Does it, and so the
And
the
the-
housing authority has a
They
positive
have
fund balance?
sufficient funds to fund this deficit, correct?
And how much is that?
Oh, gosh. It's on your Schedule D. I'm so sorry, I didn't bring it up here
Okay,
with
well-
me, but it's on the Schedule D.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, are there any public comments regarding this item?
No public comments.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We have before us a recommendation to adopt a resolution of the Housing Authority of the City of Port Hueneme, California, approving the fiscal year 2022-2023 amended budget. May I have a motion in a second?
So moved.
Second?
I'll invite anybody into discussion. Anybody wants to discuss anything? All right, Madam Clerk, can we please take a vote?
Member Gama,
Yes.
Vice Chair Perez,
Yes.
Member Blackwell, Member Brown, Member Hernandez,
Yes.
Member McQueen Lejeune,
Yes.
and Chair Martinez.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right. We will now move to member reports, comments, and requests for future agenda items. Are there any reports, comments, or requests for future agenda items for the Housing Authority?
Just like to make a comment. Could we consider having a schedule for regular meetings? I think the questions that Councilmember McQueen LeJean brought up are valid. Yeah, I think we'd be better suited to get an update and hear the one. I know there's a lot of good things going on in the housing department, and so I'm pretty sure that maybe once a quarter we could have a nice update and review expenditures and feel more comfortable rather than seeing 6 months of expenditures and the like. But I do know there's a lot of positive things going on in the housing department, and I thank staff for that, and wish all the residents well.
Is that a request or a motion for an agenda item?
I would just, yeah, that's a,
Second?
Okay. Madam Clerk, may we have a vote, please?
Member Gama,
yes.
Vice Chair Perez,
Yes.
Member Blackwell.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Member Blackwell, can you just say that on the mic? Just turn it on.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Brown,
Yes.
Member Hernandez,
Yes.
Member McQueen Lejeune,
Yes.
and Chair Martinez.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Are there any other comments or requests? Okay. The Port Hueneme Housing Authority will adjourn to its next regular meeting scheduled for April 3rd, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. and the City Council meeting will now reconvene. The time is now 6:59 p.m. Thank you, Johnny. Member Blackwell. And we will move on to presentations. Number 4, Air Pollution Control Board District presentation.
Good evening, Chair Martinez, member of the board, member of the public. My name is Ali Ghassami. I'm the executive officer of Ventura County Air Pollution Control District. Today, I have a presentation for you that I'm going to go through the agenda for you. What I'm going to cover right now is just go briefly towards APCD mission and vision that we have. Then I'm going to briefly explain the federal, state, and local responsibility, our air permitting requirements, and then going to discuss about permitting dredging operation, and then I leave with time for question and answers. Our mission is to protect, our vision is to provide a cleaner, actually for everyone in Ventura County. Our mission is to improve the air quality in the Ventura County and protect the public health. What is the role of federal, state, and local agency? I just summarized how the structure works. As a local agency, we work closely with the state agency, which in our case is going to be California Resources Board, and federal regulatory agencies, which in our case is EPA Region 9. What are the responsibility of each agency? At the federal level, they establish national ambient air quality standards for all of the states. At the same time, they regulate and adopt rules and regulation for stationary sources as well as on-road and mobile sources, on-road and off-road sources. And then they oversee the responsibility of the states, like in our case, California, CARB, which is California Air Resources Board. At the state level, since California has the worst climate air pollution, then they not only they can regulate the stationary sources, they regulate on-road mobile sources as well, not off-road, only on-road. At the same time, they set national ambient air state standards that it is most of the time it is more stringent than federal standards. And we not only they establish toxic air pollutant as well, but at the local level, we have to know that we only regulate stationary sources. We don't regulate any mobile sources. And we have about 47 employees to the job that we are actually assigned to do. How does our permit processing works? I'm just going to give you a general picture of how it works. Usually any equipment with any emission would come to the district. They have to get a permit from us. And why we want to give a permit? Because we want to establish certain permit conditions that we can enforce in order for us to meet the federal and state standards. How does it work? There are certain rules and regulations that it tells the facilities, it tells the owner or operator of any machine, you need to get a permit. What are those rules? I put it over there for you to see. At the same time, we have a rule that says your equipment or process do not require any permit, which is in this case Rule 23. A permit evaluation is this: we have 30 from the day the application is filed, we have 30 days to review and make a decision on the application, either if the application is complete, incomplete, what it has. So we do some kind of a permit evaluation. And after 30 days, if it is incomplete, we send a letter back to the facility. We get more information and we start processing and issuing a permit. But there are a lot of process involved. I'm not going to go through detailed process. Like we have to make sure that they are in compliance with all of our rules and regulation. They have the best available control technology. They have required offset. I'm going to go through what that means later on in the slides. But at the end, if there is any public noticing requirement, we do that. And then we issue a permit. What the permit consists of, it lists all of the permit equipment that the facility has, that it emits, and also it contains a lot of permit conditions that the facility is required to comply with. So, and then after it is being issued, if nothing is going to change, the facility doesn't come back with any changes, usually it's going to be renewed on annual basis. One of the rules that the facility are supposed to, are required to comply with is new source review. The new source review is telling us that we have to make sure there is a net zero increase. Like we don't allow any facility coming in with emissions that is not going to be offsetted, or they don't have the best available control technology to reduce it. So what is the best available control technology? This is the most stringent technology that the facility can put on their equipment to reduce the emission, but it has to be feasible, available, and it has been practiced in the industry. Then, with the application, when does it apply? When you have a new equipment that coming in to get a permit, if you have a permit that you have to make modification, if there is equipment that you want to replace, then you're subject to the best available control technology. Now, another one of the important requirement of the new source review rule is you have to have offsets. What does it mean? We have a threshold that is built based on the different pollutant, but for ROC and which is reactive organic compounds and nitrogen oxide, there is a threshold of 5 tons per year. So if the facility comes in and they are above that threshold offset requirements, they have to provide offsets. That means they have to go and either reduce emission somewhere in the facility, so bring it below 5, the facility emissions, or they have to go and purchase emissions that they are available and not being used. We call this emission reduction credit. But I have a slide that I can go through that but in detail for you. Let me see if I can't see it from there, but I have my slides over here. Also, at the same time, when they are coming in, for the ERC, applicant is required to provide 10% additional ERC. Like if they let's say they need 6 tons of emissions, we require 10% more than was for the benefit of the air quality. And district process approximately, this is just the FYI, 100 applications per year. I'm talking about the Ventura County Air Pollution Control District, which less than 5 applications per year may be required to provide offsets. We don't see that many. Now, what is this emission reduction credit? How is it being generated? If a facility is generated through equipment shutdown, installation of the control equipment, like they are reducing their emission, so the extra emission that they had before, they can provide, like bank it basically. It's like getting the credit for the amount of emission is being reduced. It has to be real, quantifiable, permanent, and enforceable, and surplus. Like if you have equipment that you didn't, because it was grandfathered because of certain rule that comes in and grandfather the existing one, and now suddenly you shut down that equipment, we don't give you the credit for the total emission that it was emitted, because we say, if you would have replaced this, you would have been subject to this rule that is going to reduce the emission by 95%. So you only can get, the surplus is about 5% that you may entitled to. So, and also in top of that, we're going to discount it 10 to 20% for the air quality benefit. Then we issue the ERC after we evaluate and evaluation and discounting. ERC, the 2 things is important about emission reduction credit. Actually 3 things. It has to be permanent, enforceable, and real. It is in tons per year of emissions. And at the same time, it's a one-time purchase. That means it's a permanent. It doesn't expire. If you have, you get emission reduction credit for equipment that you shut down, and let's say it is 5 tons per year, that's forever. Like you can have this one, and this is not going to be reduced or anything. It's permanent. And if I give this to you to use it and you purchase it from me, it becomes permanent for you forever, unless you make some changes and you give it to somebody else or you make some reductions. Now, I want to talk about permitting of dredging engine. Dredging engines are exempt from Ventura County Air Pollution Control District permit requirements, as they are registered, usually they are registered under the PERP, which is Portable Emission Equipment Registration Program, which is handled by California Air Resources Board, which is CARB. However, PERP, which is, as I stated, Portable Equipment Registration Program, regulation requires engine used in state territorial waters must comply with the offset requirements if they need to. If they are below 5 tons, below the threshold, they don't. But if it is above, which usually is, they have to provide offsets. In order for us to control that, we require, even though the dredging engines doesn't require a permit from the APCD. But because of the offset requirements, in order for us to make it administrated to do everything, we require a permit for that dredging operation. I'm going to talk about the Manson construction barge. They have a dredging engine which is under the PERP regulation and have a VCAPCD permit to operate with annual engine fuel usage limit to facilitate the offset requirements. Now, Manson construction current permit. Annual emission usage was actually increased in 2023 they went and they purchased emission reduction credit because they wanted to do more dredging and they didn't have enough fuel. So in order for them to do that operation, they had to purchase ERC. This permit will continue to be renewed at the newer annual base, like other permits. On the annual basis, is going to be renewed. And nothing is going to be changed. Like let's say Manson had 27 tons per year of allowable emission limit. They went and they purchased ERC for another 20 tons. So it becomes 47 tons of emission. It's being renewed every year for 47 tons per year of emission, which relate back to how much fuel usage they can have, how much dredging they can do. And this year was it was, I think, one of those years that they had to do a lot of dredging. So every year they have that amount of dredging that they did this year that they can do. Similar permits are also issued to Ventura County Harbor Department or Channel Island Harbor and Ventura Port District, which is Ventura Harbor, with the specific annual fuel usage based on the permit cap that they have. These permits are allowed to work in conjunction with Manson permit when the dredging is at the respective location. So if Manson comes in, start doing dredging at Ventura Harbor, they can use not only their 47 tons of emission or so many fuel usage that they have, plus whatever permit it is on the fuel usage permit that the Ventura Harbor has. So if they do the dredging at the harbor, if they do the dredging at Channel Island, the same thing. So with respect to the location, they can combine those permits and do the dredging. I think that's all I have. And I'm thinking I leave it to the question. I brought with me John Harder, our supervising permitting engineer, to help me with this presentation and respond to any question that you may have. John, would you like to join me? No, I'm ready to take your questions.
Okay. Thank you, Officer Ali, for your presentation. Councilmember Gama, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. So you said that permits aren't necessary for moving
That's
projects,
correct.
right?
For all road, yes.
Now, the dredge moves
I understand. That's what I explained.
very slowly, but not a lot, but we still have to get permits.
Yes.
So it's not stationary?
No. If you
But that
go
seems
to
like
one
a
of the
contradiction.
No. May I explain?
Yeah.
Okay. Dredging operation does not require a permit. However, because of why they don't require a permit? Because they are registered under California Portable Registration Program. Now, but at the same time, that PERP program, which state running it, it says if you operate that engines in a state water, if it is more than above the threshold, offset threshold, you have to provide offsets. So let's say Manson is above the threshold. They need to provide offset. How, as an APCD, we can administrate that offset requirement? How do we go and say that how much you need? This is the amount that you have to put your permit. How do I make sure they don't go above the offset? That's why we are creating a permit for dredging operation to administrate the offset requirement, which is put in by the state for us.
Okay,
I think I can add to that.
okay.
Well, there's a difference between, there's portable equipment that is also permitted because it's stationary, because somebody moves it to a location, it doesn't move while it's operating. So it's a stationary item while it's staying in one place and operating.
Yeah, but I don't
And then
think,
on top of that, the barge has engines that move the barge. So those aren't the engines we're talking about. We're talking about these large engines that are on top of the barge that are sucking up, doing the dredging.
but the
Does
whole,
that help?
the whole facility moves constantly. That's the whole, it moves to collect the sand. But the other thing that I just want to understand so we don't repeat what happened this year. I understand the goals of your organization is to minimize emissions. And because we ran into this credit issue because of the amount of sand versus the last dredge cycle, we were shut down.
Yeah.
And then the rains came and debris ended up on the beach. And so the goal of reducing emissions to the lowest level wasn't met because the debris that came on the beach, we ended up burning more fuel and more emission. And so and I understand that next process, we won't necessarily have that issue because we've obtained the amount of credits necessary to hit that threshold of mimicking Mother Nature and the amount of sand that we need to move to mimic Mother Nature. So, but do you agree that this year we stumbled, we had a little bit of a problem, and that shutdown resulted in increased emissions?
I can tell you this, that if it was planned correctly, it wouldn't have happened. Manson contacted us in June that they may need more limits. Manson, we get back, we talked to legal person that they had, we talked to so many other people. We've worked with them, but I cannot force anybody that you're gonna come up and suddenly you're gonna tell me that you have a month to do this and you're gonna end up with this. But if you approach the district for guidance, if you approach district and say that I may need this, we always work with the facility to say what you need to do. And also, if they plan it correctly, it is a rolling average of 12 months. Every 12 months, if you finish with your limit, you can continue again. Like if enforcement goes to Manson today and they said, I want to look at your records, they go back 12 months from today and see how much they have used and if they are actually below the threshold that they are supposed to be or permit limit. A month from now, we just go back 12 months from that month and go back. So it requires a lot of planning, and I cannot do that for them. But it is not something that suddenly, it's not a process that you can say, I don't know if I'm gonna do this much or that much. You always know how much dredging you're gonna do. Based on that, you have to plan it accordingly. Of course, everybody has to actually obey certain requirements. Sometimes when you are under press time, there is going to be complication. As you know, we worked with you, Supervisor Lopez, and everybody else. We issued a permit within days. It was the matter of just, we have to have everything in our hand. Otherwise, we won't be able to issue. We have to follow the law. I cannot just go beyond what I'm required to do, and I have to stay within the law and to provide whatever I can to the facility and help the community. But believe me, our goal is to reduce emission and provide better air quality for everyone. And these things, I think, happens on like wildfires. Nobody can predict when it's going to happen, but we know it's going to happen. There are some minimization that it has to happen. There are some maintenance has to be done before that happens. First time, yes, I agree with you that it happens and maybe it's going to go out of control. But if second time and third time it happens and we are not ready, it is our fault that we are not ready. It has to be something that we plan ahead because it happens to us. Like for example, right now, Manson, last year that it happens, we took care of it, it happens, it's done. But if Manson or Port of Hueneme, anybody, Channel Island or Ventura Harbor, if they know they're going to do a lot of dredging, they already know how much allowable fuel usage they can use, right? They know how many acres they can do dredging. It's just simple math. And if they think they're going to do much more than that, let's think about it now. We are ready to help you. We are ready here to help you guys out, but we cannot do it for them. They have to come to us. And if we don't come in and we delay the process, it's our fault. Yes. Then I take your word that yes, we are polluting the emission and we are not doing anything, but we are doing everything to reduce the emissions.
Thank you, and I think we all agree this is very complicated stuff. And for us, it's complicated, and I know that you work administrating these laws, and I commend you for that. I know it's a big challenge, and I think I learned in this last episode that that dredge of the dredge project here at the Channel Islands that sustains and nourishes Wainimi Beach is the biggest project in California. And I also think I heard that it's the biggest single emission source in Ventura County, and that
It's a large source in Ventura County.
yes, and that we're looking for an electric dredge. So if anybody's got one out there, make it available, because then we won't have to deal with the air pollution credits.
Is coming. We go towards electrification of all of the engines. Right now, unfortunately, it's very expensive for facilities to go and buy these electric ones. It's costly. But as we go in, as technology advances, it becomes cheaper and cheaper, and it's going to be available. But remember, we have incentive programs. We have incentive programs that we can provide to anybody who wants to electrify their engines. Have them apply.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for
No
coming.
problem.
Thank you, Officer Ali. Are there any more questions? Okay. Just want to thank you for your time and your presentation, and also for, Councilmember Hernandez.
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you, Mr. Ali, for your presentation.
No problem.
Can you please clarify for our residents and for our city council, who is responsible, what agency is responsible for monitoring and requesting additional emission credits?
Monitoring and would you,
Right.
can you explain to me more?
Well, if there's an issue with the dredging project, who's the lead agency in bringing that to the attention of APCD when it comes to emission credits?
Our enforcement. It's not actually bring it to our attention regarding emission reduction credit. If an inspector goes to, let's say, Manson, and find out, for example, their fuel usage, they exceed the amount they were allowed to use. They come back, they issue a notice of compliance, they come back and they're gonna issue a notice of violation, and that's how we know about it. But
So
usually,
the city doesn't really have a role. The city doesn't really have a role in that.
and I don't think so. I think city
what I'm-
doesn't interfere with Manson, what they do. Manson has a specific permit with city regarding other regulation, but they have regarding the dredging operation, they only have permit with us, and we are the lead agency to tell them how much they can dredge, not how much they can dredge, how much fuel they can use for dredging operation. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I was just trying to get to the point that this project is managed through the Channel Islands Harbor District, who contracts with the Army Corps of Engineers,
Yes.
and that it's not the city's responsibility to monitor.
No, usually they work with Manson. See, it is a harbor or Channel Island project, but they hire a contractor. Let's put it this way. They hire a contractor. This contractor is Manson. It could be X. It happens to be Manson. So they work with Manson and they tell Manson how much dredging we want to do. Manson is not going to come on his own and say that, oh, I'm going to dredge, for example, so many cubic yard. It is this harbor department is going to come and tell him, I'm assuming we need to do this much dredging. And Manson is going to say, as a contractor, okay, I will do it. And they are getting paid for it. One thing that you should be concerned is that ERC credit that it was an Army Corps paid for, it went to a contractor permit. So it is his asset right now. It is Manson asset, even though it was purchased by federal money. That would be my concern. But I have no control. Whoever has that certificate and comes to me and say that I have that emission, that much emission, it's under my name. I said that person is the owner of that much credit. Are you following me? I'm sorry, I'm confusing everyone.
No, yes, I am. Thank you.
So I would rather, like like when we had a meeting, I even brought up the question that I would rather actually for the harbor department to say, I would like to have that ERC on my permit. When they coming to the harbor, then I'm going to let Manson use it. But right now, the Manson has it on their own permit. But I'm trying to call. I haven't had a chance. I talked to director of harbor, the Ventura Harbor Department, to get me a contact person to talk to Army Corps engineer to inform them of what situation we are in, because I want that credit stay in Ventura County. I don't want that credit to go anywhere else. If Manson decide to go in Santa Barbara, start dredging, I don't want him to use any of this credit or sell any of the credits or even lease any of this credit to anybody else.
Oh, I had a question, but you just answered part of it. So I was going to ask you why that was a concern for you, and it's because Manson can take that credit and leave the area and use it for
No,
other-
they cannot. They have to use it in our area. But Manson can come back and say that, you know what, I'm going to sell my emissions to somebody. Somebody is
Okay.
going and purchasing it. It's like having a title on a house. The title is under your name. You can do anything unless Army Corp already, maybe they thought about it, has a separate contract or they have separate, I don't know, a separate contract with Manson that this is ours. You're using it, but this is ours. I don't know.
Well, nonetheless, thank you so much for
Sure.
helping us out. Oh, Councilmember Martha McQueen Lejean.
Thank you. I just had one question for Ali. Thank you so much for your presentation.
No
But I
problem.
wanted you, if you could just take 1 minute and go a step further
Mhm.
and communicate. You shared some information with me last week, and I think it's important for this point. So would you just, for maybe 30 seconds, I
Mhm.
think kind of piggybacking on what Council Member Perez just mentioned, what would be the process, or what would have been the process if by chance our dredging credits were from Ventura County versus through the contractor?
I didn't hear. Did you hear it correctly? Would you repeat that question? I'm sorry. The last part I didn't
Yes,
get.
yeah. Right. So you mentioned last week when we talked that the scenario when an organization gets the credit from Ventura County, that you hold the county credits. I'm saying credits. I don't know emission credit. I don't know if that's the right
No,
word.
that's fine. That's fine.
And if by chance someone like us from the county, we ran out, then you have the population of credits where you can just manage. So you could have done some shifting of credits, but you couldn't do that because those credits were not owned by Ventura County. They were actually owned by someone else.
Okay. Your voice were broken. I'm so sorry. But let me like explain to you what you are asking me. The ERC, the amount of emission reduction credit, is created from emissions shutdown or reduction that happens in Ventura County. So these ERCs belong to Ventura County. We cannot, for example, somebody cannot go to Los Angeles, reduce emission over there, get some certificate and bring it to the Ventura County and use it in Ventura County for somebody to purchase it. It doesn't happen that way. So the reduction has to be permanent, enforceable, and in here, and then we issue the credit. The credit should be used in Ventura County, cannot be used anywhere else. However, the problem that I had was, if Manson comes in and say that, you know what, I don't want to do dredging anymore. I want my permit be surrounded. Give me the credit for the total emission that I have. Of course, we're going to discount it, go through the process, but we give him a certificate for the amount, but we give him to Manson. We don't come and give it to Harbor, Ventura Harbor District, or we don't give it to Channel Island Harbor. Did I make sense? Dr. Lejeune, did I answer your question?
Yes, you answered the question, but the point I was hoping to hear was the fact that even you mentioned about when you distribute credits, if you distributed credits and that organization doesn't use those credits, you can actually pull those credits back and redistribute them to someone else. And that while you can do that, if the organizations or you're talking within Ventura County, you could actually do that. But if it's
No.
someone like contractor,
No.
then
But-
you don't have the authority to reuse those credits.
No, so
anything
maybe we did, okay, no, that's not gonna happen. Actually, this is not correct, and I think when I explained it, I didn't explain it well, I'm sorry. No, if the credit, if it is purchased, I cannot get it back. But I was mentioning that I want this credit to remain in Ventura County. That means I don't want Manson to get it, like to sell it, get a certificate and sit at home and it's just the money for him. Or lease it to somebody else to use it, which is not, for example, it's somewhere else. It was bought by the Army engineer and it should remain and does be used for the dredging operation. It shouldn't be used for any other purposes. That's all I was saying.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No problem. Do you want to add anything?
Well, I think Golly said that, in order for Manson to get a credit that's on paper, a certificate, they'd have to surrender their permit that they have. So they wouldn't be able to do the dredging, if that helps.
All right, thank you, Officer Ali.
No
Thank you for
problem.
the presentation and answering all our questions, and again for helping us out with our dredging project here on our beach. Appreciate it very much.
No problem.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
We will be moving presentation number 5, clean power lines, till after item number 7. So we're gonna move on to number 6, hazard mitigation presentation by Scott Madelon. Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right. All right. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, and staff. Tonight, I'm in front of you as the Emergency Preparedness Manager, giving you a brief update on the multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. And if that sounds familiar, it's because it is. You adopted it this past September. And I was asked to come back just to give a little general overview, more about what it was and where it kind of can lead the city of Port Hueneme to. I did also hand out, for those in the audience who didn't see it, there's one available to the public, just an executive summary from the county that explains kind of the points that I'm going to be talking about in a more broader, context. So getting started, what is the hazard mitigation plan? Essentially what it is think about it, if we have a hazard and we have mitigation, how do we stop it from happening? So the focus of this document, and this was a multi-jurisdictional document where just about everyone in Ventura County participated with the County of Ventura to come up with this. And we've been doing so here in Port Hueneme since 2005. And every 5 years, it's revisited, updated to support whatever the local needs and assessments are of those particular hazards. What it specifically does for us particularly is to maintain our eligibility for FEMA for grant reimbursement. Meaning, if we have a hazard that's already been identified and there's a grant that comes along, we in connection with the county can look at that as an option for serving whatever that hazard might be. And I'm going to get to those in just a minute, which is why you have the handout. But that was the purpose of it. And the other purpose of joining the county is because we can team up and use our resources and utilize our they call it scale of economy together. So we can use resources to help offset for different areas of the county. On your little handout. If you go to page number 3, this is the big part of the presentation. It's pretty simple. You'll look at the top where it has these little bubbles. And if you're in the audience, I'm sorry, you can't see those at the moment, but it identifies clearly what the county has determined high risk, medium risk, and low risk. And there is a silver lining to this. Clearly, if one of our dams break and we have a ton of water coming in through Ventura County, we in Port Hueneme are in a very unique geographical situation because we're surrounded by Oxnard on 3 sides and we have water on the 4th. We are kind of at the end of that streamline. But unfortunately, water doesn't just go right down the middle of the road. It covers everything and anything in between. So from a county perspective, we're looking at dam failures and landslides. But from Port Hueneme's perspective, if I ask you a question, what do you think our most significant hazard to Port Hueneme is? I would expect most of you to say erosion and sand replenishment. Here's the silver lining. We wrote that into our policy. Meaning, if there are FEMA grants available coming through both the county and we find out about them individually, we now have documented efforts to show that through the history of Port Hueneme, we've always experienced erosion. And one way to mitigate that erosion is for sand replenishment. So that has been written to our individual plan as you adopted back in September. So that is the good news. Finally, just a couple of things to mention about the different potential grants. They have both hazard mitigation assistance grants, meaning if something happens, we're trying to mitigate something, we can go in advance of whatever that natural disaster may be and use funds and resources to help mitigate or get rid of that problem. Pre-disaster mitigation, the actual hazard mitigation, which you just heard about. And then the last one is flood assistance, which is pretty big. If you've been anywhere up in Ventura after these rains, you know exactly what flooding could do to a city, and Ventura is really having to assess that and figure out what they're going to be doing. Just one thing to quickly mention, this is not an emergency operations plan, which you also adopted. That's when an emergency happens, what do we do? This is before the emergency, what can we do? And finally, the Board of Supervisors on July 12th adopted this, and it was recorded with FEMA on August 16th. So we joined together. We are in line with being able to apply for these grants. And with that, I'll take any questions you may have wrapping this up.
Thank you, Mr. Matalon. Are there any questions? Councilmember Martha McQueen or Councilmember Hernandez, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, all right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. We'll now move on to item number 7, city employee recognition, presented by Deputy City Manager Charles Peretz.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council members, members of city staff, members of the public. So as the council may recall, last year, we began a process of recognizing city employees for their years of service in alignment with one of the goals of the city's strategic plan to become an employer of choice and recognize the good work that city employees are doing. So last year was the first year that we restarted this program. It was a heavy year. We had a lot to catch up on. This tonight is our effort to celebrate those employees in the first quarter of the year, celebrating their 15, their 20, their 25, and so on years of service with the city. So we have a couple of department heads to call up to recognize people within their department. And I'll start with Interim Police Chief Robert Alberts.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council, members of staff, members of the public. So I'm before you tonight to recognize Sergeant Eric Starna for 15 years of service with the City of Port Hueneme and the Port Hueneme Police Department. Sergeant Starna was hired by the City of Port Hueneme on March 31st of 2008. He previously worked for the Orange County Sheriff's Department and the Oxnard Police Department, and was actually hired by the Port Hueneme Police Department as a sergeant. He is currently assigned to patrol and is the field supervisor for B shift, which is also known as weekday day shift. Sergeant Starna has worked several assignments and held several collateral duties, including detective sergeant. He's our current training and scheduling sergeant. He's been an emergency manager and the sergeant in charge of the reserve officer and volunteers and policing programs. He was also responsible for implementing the department's pay scheduling program and Power DMS field training officer software, which I'd mentioned to you in a previous presentation when we talked about our year-end report and our accomplishments. When asked what he likes best about working for the city of Port Hueneme, Sergeant Starna answered that he enjoys the many opportunities he's been afforded with the city. One opportunity he really enjoys is working to keep a strong partnership with the school district in revitalizing our commitment to the School Attendance Review Board program. He also loves working with the reserve and volunteers and policing programs. And as the department grows, he also enjoys making sure the training of new officers is being done in accordance with changes in relevant laws. Sergeant Starna's favorite work moment thus far occurred during the first few months he worked for the city. During the late night, early morning hours, he responded to a medical call involving a woman in labor whose husband had pulled over at the corner of Ventura and Port Hueneme Road. Sergeant Starna was the first officer to arrive and realized the baby was ready to enter this world with or without his help. When he first thought about his answer to this question, he realized that the baby from that call is 15 years old now. On the questionnaire that Human Resources send out, there's an optional question, and it's, is there anything personal about you or your family that you would like to share as part of being recognized for your city with the service, or for your service with the city? Sergeant Starna answered that he wanted to take the opportunity to talk about law enforcement families because those families are also supporting this community. They do so every day by the flexibility required for law enforcement schedules and by praying every time an officer leaves the house. Sergeant Starna would like to thank his wife, his children, and his parents for their continued love and support. Please join me in thanking Sergeant Eric Starna for 15 years of service to the Port Hueneme Police Department, the residents of Port Hueneme, and the city of Port Hueneme. With that, I'll open it up to any comments the city council would like to make.
Thank you for your service. Thank you for being a part of our wonderful city, and look forward to seeing you out there like we do all the time.
Thank you for your service and for your family's service and dedication that they have to sacrifice for yours and your wife's schedule. So thank you.
Councilmember Hernandez or Martha?
Yeah, I do want to take a moment to say thank you to Sergeant Starna for his service. He and I worked together, I think even before I was on the city council. We worked together on emergency management issues and continued to do so when I was appointed or elected to the council. And he's done very good work, and I can always count on him and depend on him when I have a question or when I need a response on something. So congratulations, Eric. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Sergeant. Yes, of course.
Mayor Pro Tem, council members, city manager, city staff, those in the audience, and those that are joining us remotely. I wanted to answer one of the questions about one of the best reasons I like working for the city, and that can be found in one of the many community events I recently attended. During COVID, we realized how much we missed those community events and those community connections. Just last week, I was fortunate enough to attend a kindergarten class presentation at Parkview Elementary. I was fortunate enough to go there. There were 40 kindergartners, and they were so much fun. They were authentic. They asked so many questions, and I had a lot of fun with the kids. Every time you go to a community event, you think that you're the one giving, but you're the one getting back. What made that more special to me is that, again, working in the city, I realized that the teacher that was inviting me out there was a daughter of one of my coworkers at a prior agency I worked for, so that made it really special for me. It was their Community Helper Week, so I really enjoyed going out there. I've been a sworn law enforcement officer for 23 years. I've worked at 3 different departments. The best part of this job is working with this community. These kindergarten kids are the best of us. They're curious, they partner with us, they like us, and they know that we keep them safe. That's my favorite part of this job, and working with this fantastic community that likes us, that partners with us, and that helps us keep the community safe. I get to work with some fantastic people at the city side. I get to work with some fantastic people on the police side, and I just wanted to share that with council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sergeant Starna. And I appreciate you helping me out even before I was on council. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you. Thank you very
Very nicely said. Thank you so much for those comments. That was beautiful.
Good evening, City Council, members of the public. Mark Watkins, your Interim Public Works Director, and it is my honor to recognize Juan Diaz for 25 years of service. The command structure within Public Works did not let me require Juan to be here, but he is here in heart and mind, I'm sure. But I will say that it's kind of ironic. One of the stories I asked him to share, I said, share a story from your 25 years. And it was an epic battle that took place between trees and sidewalks on Evergreen Street. And sidewalks won with Juan's leadership and dedication into that battle. But Juan leads a strong and small, mighty group of 3 maintenance workers to maintain all the streets here in the city of Port Hueneme. They also maintain all the pavement markings, the signing, the striping, crack filling, potholes, and all those things that happen. And they do it with energy, with enthusiasm, with dedication to the city. Just this last week, Juan and his crew repaired the picnic pads down at the beach so that they're ready for the 75th anniversary this Saturday. And so starting that epic battle to save our streets 25 years ago, he has continued on. It's an honor for me to be able to give this recognition to him that all of you signed, and I'll be proud to do so tomorrow morning. So on Juan's behalf, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Watkins.
So that concludes tonight's presentation of recognizing both Eric and Juan for their years of service with the city. Thank you for providing us for the venue and the opportunity to recognize the great work of so many good employees that work with us. And we look forward to returning in approximately 3 months with the next slate of employees to be recognized. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Deputy City Manager Charles Fretz. We will now move on to presentation item number 5, Clean Power Alliance presentation. Hopefully it's the right time. Councilmember Hernandez, do you have a comment?
Yes, I have a point of order or point of privilege. We cannot see the speakers. Can the tech people redirect the camera so that we can see who's speaking and see the slides? Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Councilmember Hernandez, I hope you can see me. I am on the road in a semi-lit car and doing some traveling for work, but I really wanted to be there with you tonight. So here I am by the light of the car door. So, but I really appreciate the opportunity to come before you and talk about a energy program that we offer to cities across Los Angeles and Ventura counties, of which all cities in Ventura County are part of, with the exception of the city of Fillmore and Port Hueneme, with Santa Paula planning to join us in 2024. So I wanted to just talk about what Clean Power Alliance is, some of our policies, programs, how we operate, and invite you to consider a process to potentially join us in the coming years. If there's interest, this is only the beginning of a long conversation. It's a multi-year process to offer your residents and businesses service from Clean Power Alliance, and really welcome the opportunity to have this first interaction. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So Clean Power Alliance, we are a publicly owned electricity provider that serves customers clean energy at competitive rates. So what happens in the electricity sector is there's 2 major components. There are the actual electrons, and we talk about that as generation. And then there is the lines and the wires, and the meters, and those things that deliver those electrons to the end use customer. What Clean Power Alliance does is it offers an option in that first category. So we offer an option to have your residents or businesses choose to receive their electrons from us, from our publicly owned nonprofit, competitive rates, while still getting their electricity delivery services, i.e. the lines and the wires and the billing and the meter reading and all of that from Southern California Edison. So a customer of Clean Power Alliance is a customer for the generation for the actual electrons and remains a customer of Southern California Edison for the lines and the wires. Our customers, and we have several 100,000 of them across Ventura County, still get one bill. We just have a page on that bill. It's not an added charge. It is a charge that replaces what's already on your Edison bill, two charges, one for generation and one for delivery. If you could go to the next slide, please. So Clean Power Alliance is what's called a CCA, or a Community Choice Aggregator. They were enabled by state legislation 20 years ago, and they have steadily grown in their market share for the provision of electricity. Currently, CCAs, there are 25 CCAs across the state of California. They serve approximately 1/3 of all the electricity load, and most of them, like ours, are joint powers authorities. They provide customer choice, competition, important for many of our members, local control and investment, and tools for climate action, improving local air quality, and resilience. Important to our model is that if a city joins our joint powers authority, all electricity customers in your city, all current customers of who get their electricity from Edison, automatically become our customers for generation unless they opt out. Now, we do lots of community events, for mailings, lots of public outreach, but at the end of the day, if a customer does not do anything, they will be a customer of for generation services from us. We offer 3 rates, and customers can always change their rates. They can also always, without restriction, go back to Edison to get both generation and delivery at any time. I'll say most customers stick with us across our service territory of over 1 million customers. Over 90% of the eligible customers have remained Clean Power Alliance customers. And we've been in business for just past 5 years. CCAs as a whole have driven the vast majority of clean energy development across California over the past 5 years. It is our specialty. We do a lot of things, but it's a core focus of ours to continue to add new, clean, reliable resources to the grid and help the state along its decarbonization path. We do that trying to help the state, but we also do that because we are only lightly regulated by the CPUC, and our governing body is, sorry, let me turn that back on. Our governing body is our board of directors, made up of local elected officials from currently our 32 and soon to be 35 member agencies. So the decisions that we make, whether they're about rates or about procurement or about programs that we offer our customers, more closely reflect the values of our local members rather than the 5 gubernatorial appointees who sit for 6-year terms on the California Public Utilities Commission. The CPUC does have some regulatory authority over us regarding electricity reliability, but the main governing body for us is our board of directors. Like I say, every member who joins gets a seat, and it's an equal seat, an equal voting seat on our board. Next slide, please. So you'll see the service area map there. It's unincorporated Ventura, unincorporated LA County, and 30 cities within those two counties. So, you know, you'll see in Ventura, it's, you know, Ojai and Oxnard and Ventura, Simi Valley, Moore Park, Thousand Oaks, and Santa Paula is scheduled to join in 2024. Or they've joined the Joint Powers Agreement, but as I'll explain, there's a year-long, at least, waiting process before we can start to serve. I think one of the things that you'll see in this map that's really exciting for me is the incredible diversity of communities across our service territory. Large, small, wealthy, poor, and lots of stuff in between. We also have a very interesting level of engagement and sort of journey along sustainability among our different members. We have some members who are very well advanced in sort of their sustainability policies. We'll say, you know, Santa Monica, South Pasadena, places like Manhattan Beach. Different areas have different places. We also have some that are, you know, just beginning or, you know, have moved slower over the past years. And one of the things we try to do is be a platform for them to help them along in whatever stage of that journey they're on. We are the largest CCA in the state, as I mentioned, and we have more customers getting 100% renewable energy than any utility in the nation. As I mentioned, each member has a seat on our board of directors, and with one small exception, every member gets an equal vote. So we're not a weighted vote like Metropolitan Water District, or we don't like have selected regional seats like you know, MetroLink or one of the larger regional JPAs. Everybody gets a seat on the board. Next slide, please. So, you know, at that board level, there's you know, people who are interested in different things. I'll start on the right. Everybody's interested in our environmental impact. I mean, just look at our name, right? Clean Power Alliance. Like it says what we are. We are about trying to have as big of an environmental impact, particularly in renewable energy development and lowering greenhouse gas emissions for our cities and for the state to move as fast along as we can. But we're also bringing customer choice. So right now in the city of Port Hueneme, except for some very large energy users, there is no customer choice. Customers get what Edison gives them. And we really believe that competition breeds innovation that gets people to sharpen their pencils and ultimately ends up benefiting the consumer. And, you know, it makes us a little bit different. You know, local government or government in general is usually either providing a monopoly service like sewer or water, or they're regulating the private sector. Well, we're a government agency that's actually competing with the private sector, and that's makes us unique, but also makes us pretty, I think, darn effective at the end of the day. And then, of course, you know, in the ever pitched give and take in California over this thing called local control, we are one way of providing local control around the choice of energy and the design and implementation of our local programs. So, you know, we definitely believe in sort of a bit of decentralization particularly in this energy and decarbonization space. So the next slide, please. So we talked about choice. So customers always have that choice of us or Edison for their electrons. And then, but within Clean Power Alliance, we offer 3 rates. We offer lean power, clean power, and 100% green power. They come at different price points and different levels of environmental performance. So the lowest one is lean power with 40% renewable energy. The middle one is clean power with 50% renewable energy. And then there's the premium product, 100% green power with 100% renewable energy. And customers in any given month can change their rate at any time while still remaining a Clean Power Alliance customer. I think I will show you the rates on the next slide, maybe. Let's see. No, let me talk about greenhouse gas impact, and then it'll be the rates. So lean power, a little bit more renewable energy and similar GHG that compared to SCE. Clean power lower than SCE, and the 100% green power obviously is 100% renewable energy, 0 carbon. This is important as you think about any broader greenhouse gas emission goals that the city might set or think about setting in the future, is that electricity is the second largest source of greenhouse gas emissions after transportation for any local community. As transportation and your big piece of infrastructure, the port there, increasingly electrifies, the ability to have that electricity be from a low carbon source can sort of compound that the importance. And the price differential between the lean, clean, and 100% green products is somewhere in the 5 to 6% range. It varies, but it's we're not talking double digits or doubling of price for that 100% green product. Next slide, please. So the one of the reasons that we have the most customers on 100% green power in the country is that we offer our cities the ability to choose the preferred energy option or the default rate that a customer gets put in if they don't make an affirmative choice, right? Most customers take a look at the materials, they take a look at the rates, and they like what we're offering and stick with the default rate that a particular community has chosen. You'll see that 22 of our 32 cities have chosen that 100% renewable energy rate. And again, most customers stick with that. Next slide, please. Our power procurement, we buy a lot of solar, we buy a lot of wind, we buy a lot of battery energy storage because we know that the sun's not always shining and the wind's not always blowing, and we need to store that energy that's generated at certain times and then be able to dispatch it, send it to the grid at the time when demand is high and maybe our generation sources are not producing. And when we do that procurement, and this is an area where those local values get expressed, we have preferences, and this is something that the board is very concerned about and watches over quite closely. We're trying to have those projects be as close to our customers as possible, that prioritize workforce development. In fact, all but 2 of our new build projects under contract have been done with project labor agreements. We have a very tight relationship with, particularly with IBEW, and do a bunch of workforce training with them at their local training center in Oxnard. We also prioritize projects that are going to, in one way or another, bring benefits to disadvantaged communities, whether that's bringing jobs to their local areas or having targeted hire or other provisions. And then we put a high premium on the environmental performance of our siting. Trying to reuse existing developed land or other opportunities that don't cause broader environmental damage. Next slide, please. Programs that benefit the community. We have a strategic plan. We're halfway through. That's got $200 million in local procurement, as well as investment in customer programs across a range of areas, including resiliency and grid management. We do have a program that offers clean backup power a system to be installed in community facilities at no cost. We are trying to move on building and transportation electrification, whether that's we have electric vehicle charger rebates that we actually are have jointly funded with your Ventura County Air Pollution Control District. Saw them earlier on the agenda. And then, of course, trying to make sure that as much of this new investment is done locally. Next slide, please. Here's a list of those, of some of those local programs. I won't, read it all, but again, these are programs that are only available to Clean Power Alliance customers and communities. One of the other things is that 90% or more of the programs that Edison has, particularly around energy efficiency, are still available to our customers because they are paying into those funds. So Clean Power Alliance customers still gets access to Edison programs, as well as these additional programs for just Clean Power Alliance. Next slide, please. Rates. Okay, so rates fluctuate over time, and currently, I'm happy to say that we are, for a typical residential customer, we are cheaper than Edison across all products, whether it's lean power, clean power, or 100% green power. And you see that differential that I mentioned between green power and lean power. The cheapest and the most expensive is about 5%. This does fluctuate over time. Sometimes we're even cheaper than this. Sometimes we've been more expensive. Our charter and our commitment to our customers is we'll always have competitive rates. And since 2018, we've always had at least one rate that's cheaper than Edison at all times, except for in 2021 when some market dynamics took us over. So I can't say the comparisons are always going to look like this, but the vast majority of the time we'll always have a rate that, at least one rate that's cheaper, and right now we happen to be cheaper across all of our rates. Next slide, please. Bill assistance. I mentioned we have a number of disadvantaged communities and customers in our service territory. Approximately 30% of our customers residential customers get assistance through the CARE or the FARA rates. That doesn't change whether they're an Edison customer or a Clean Power Alliance customer. In addition, low-income customers in communities that have chosen 100% green as their default get that 100% green energy at no additional cost. That is a commitment that our board has made since the beginning to internally fund that subsidy. And all of our programs, some programs are additional programs are just for low-income customers, and all of our programs have either set-asides or specific pathways for low-income customers to access. Next slide, please. So, typical process to join. We're here early in the year, early in a calendar year, to sort of provide information, answer questions. If a city happens to be interested in maybe taking the next step, we need the city to make some data requests of Edison, and we also have a $10,000 fee to do a study for the impact that it would do for the city on the environmental perspective and in the rates perspective, but also for us, how it would, adding new cities would impact our existing customers, mostly from a financial or rate perspective. After we do that study, our board would consider making an invitation, a formal invitation to a city to join. At that point, you would consider an ordinance joining the JPA, and then Clean Power Alliance would make a filing with the California Public Utilities Commission to begin service. That typically happens over the course of a year, of a calendar year. Some cities consider, and it takes them 2 years to think about this. But the deadline really is, in any calendar year, is right around the middle of the summer, so that we can get that study in front of our board in September to determine whether we make an invitation. And then there would be that council adoption. And then there is a 1 year at least a 1 year waiting period. We use that waiting period to procure additional energy, to educate the community, and to prepare everyone for this change in or service or new option available. And then that following year, Clean Power Alliance service would go live in a month during that next calendar. Right now, typically new customers come on in the spring, late winter, early spring. But the California Public Utilities Commission is currently rethinking a little bit of this process, and it could be that there's a bit of a longer wait. But within that next calendar year is typically when service would start. So we're, very early on in the year, and, in that far left-hand box right now. And with that, maybe we can go to the next slide, and I would open it up for any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Councilmember Hernandez?
Thank you, Mayor Martinez, and thank you, Mr. Bardak, for your presentation. I've heard about the Clean Power Alliance now for the past several years. I know you've been in this county for quite some time, and I've heard good things about you. But I do have some questions about your services in terms of, well, one is the rolling power outages that we get with Edison. Will we see an absence of that or relief in that from the power outages, rolling power outages, or is that just something that we have to live with under CPA if we decide to go that way?
Yeah, we do not have control over that, unfortunately. That is really, I mentioned there's the generation and then the lines and the wires. So that really is, when it comes to things like public safety power shutoffs, that's an Edison thing. And then any kind of, as well as sort of local infrastructure. And then we've heard about, flex your power in those times when the grid is unstable. That is an entire grid thing. We put on the power that our customers need. We can't do a lot about that, with the exception of our area and resiliency. I mentioned a program where we're providing backup power systems for critical facilities in your local community. So that might be a public works facility, an emergency operations center, something that even in those times when the grid's under stress, really needs to stay on, maybe doesn't have a backup generator or something like that. That's the area we're trying to focus on initially.
Okay, so it sounds like also you use the existing infrastructure, so there would be no new infrastructure requirements with your program. Is that correct?
That's correct. We don't change meters. We don't, Edison still reads that meter. They're reading it electronically. And then we tell Edison, based on a customer's usage, how much to put on the customer's bill.
Well, I can see a lot of benefits in this Clean Power Alliance, saving money for our consumers, our residents, increased employment for the area. But my concern is the will of our city. And I noticed your outreach doesn't happen until we're into this process. So is there any outreach that happens earlier so that our residents can become interested and willing to make this change from Edison to CPA?
Yeah. So I'll just say that we are, happy to host a community forum or do that. This, typically we're before a city council in that first year, that before you decide to join. We're typically here 2 or 3 or 4 times in these public meetings, and that's where a lot of the deliberation is taking place about, as you call it, the will of the council. But we do community workshops as well along that pathway. But frankly, I'll say, most of the outreach that the really intensive outreach that takes place is in that time before the switch takes place, after you may have made the decision already.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just hoping it'd be a little earlier on before we even put it on the council agenda. And I'd like to see our community really interested in doing this before council, decides for them.
Okay.
So,
yeah, we'd be happy to have some of that, and that could be, open community meeting. That could also be, key stakeholders in your community who you think, really know. Obviously, the port is a big player. It's one of the reasons we're interested, frankly, in you all, in addition to your residents, is that there's a lot of creative things that we could do with the port around their electricity consumption and operations.
yeah. Thank you. Well, I hope we follow up on this. I'm very excited to have you here tonight, and I think you'd be good for our city. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Does council have any more comments or questions?
I do. Can you go back to the slide that shows the process of how everything is broken down from when council decides?
Yes, I think you all are controlling the slides there, so I could go back one slide, I think. There we go.
So yes, so the feasibility study, that is when a city would pay the $10,000 to have the study done. What is determined by that? What does it mean by a feasibility study, and what are you trying to determine?
Yeah, so the first thing we're trying to determine is what the composition of your load, the electricity load is in your city, to make sure that we're going to be able to meet all of that load at a competitive rate. So We don't want you to join and turn your customers, provide this choice if we don't think we can compete, because there's no reason to do that. And in your city, you have some interesting loads. You have some, your average residential consumer and all of that. We know, but in every city there's some interesting customers who have loads that are out of the norm, and we need to look at that and make sure that we can serve them with competitive rates. The other thing that we look at is the environmental impact that bringing our service to your city would imply for the city itself. Because again, we're Clean Power Alliance, and if we can't deliver a good environmental performance to your city, we don't want to do that either. And then the third thing is, based on how power prices are trending, a new city joining could either positively or negatively impact a CPA's cost structure, and therefore the rates that our existing customers pay. So we want to make sure that that our board is aware of anything that bringing on a new city would imply in terms of the rates for our existing customers. That doesn't mean if there's a little bit of impact on our existing customers that it's a no-go. In fact, the 3 new cities that we're adding next year, Santa Paula, Monrovia, and Hermosa Beach, is having a slightly negative effect on our finances. But it was not anything that the board felt was super impactful. I think it was like 17 cents a month per existing customer. And they thought that the mission was important enough to bring that burden. But if it started to get out of hand, that's something that the board would need to know. So those are the 3 main things. Can we deliver competitive rates to your actual customers? Can we deliver environmental performance? And are we not overduly burdening our own existing finances?
Thank you.
Councilmember Gama?
Thank you. You showed a slide that said the average residential customer, I think it was $174. And that's significantly more than what I pay a month. So I'm just trying to understand how we would evaluate, because if we went with a program and everybody had increased monthly electric bills, it wouldn't be very popular.
Yeah.
So how do you go about that process?
Sure. So those comparisons that I showed are they are a typical customer bill over the entire Clean Power Alliance service territory. So I don't know the exact load composition in Port Hueneme. That's why we need to do this feasibility study and get data from Edison. But obviously that includes some very high usage communities and some lower usage communities. So, a typical customer and high air conditioning communities and lower air conditioning. So a typical customer in, say, Oxnard, at your neighbor, is not like, that's not the actual bill that they pay or typical bill that they pay, because that's including places like Calabasas in that calculation. So we do look at it now as we do the feasibility study, based on actual customer usage, and then we provide the rate comparisons based on a total bill. What would a customer be paying to Edison, and what would they be paying to us?
Okay, I think Councilmember Gama's question had to do with the fact that if somebody that's paying a lot more and they see a price change where it's dropped, is somebody that's paying less also going to see that price drop?
Yes, yes, that is equal. That's a comparison across the board. It does not, how much energy you use does not impact that. What we showed there was a typical or average customer, but if a customer is, paying $100 on their total bill right now, and they're maybe on that clean rate, which offers a 5% discount, they're going to be paying $95. If a customer is got, God forbid, a $1,000 a month electricity bill, they're going to be getting that same 5% discount.
Okay. Are there any more questions or comments?
So with the Navy and the port, how does that impact the average residential user? Because they are, like you said, big consumers of energy.
A port, the port is a very large energy user or electricity user. Their rates are typically going to be, and I'll start to get wonky here, sorry, things like GS3 and TOU8 and their particular rate designations. And we charge those customers based on a strict cost of service model, which you're familiar if you have water, or other sewer, any other thing that is done on cost of service basis. So their rates tend to fluctuate a little bit more, and that can impact competitiveness. One of the reasons that we want to make sure, one of the reasons we do the feasibility study is to make sure very early on, even before you would consider joining, that we know what the impact on your large energy users would be. And those rates are really custom, and we want to, again, make sure that we're competitive.
Okay. I'm also under the impression that there's some public comments regarding this item. Do we still have public comments?
Yes. So we have a public comment from Farah.
Your Honorable Council, my name is Farah Stack, Policy Associate speaking on behalf of Community Environmental Council, a local environmental nonprofit whose mission is to build on the ground momentum to reverse the threat of the climate crisis. We work throughout Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo counties. We developed the Ventura County Electric Vehicle Blueprint with Ventura County Regional Energy Alliance, started the Electric Drive 805 Coalition to make it easier to adopt EVs across the Tri-Counties, offered our Solarized Ventura County program, developed action plans for Ventura, Thousand Oaks, and Moore Park, worked with the Port of Hueneme to electrify heavy-duty trucks, amongst other projects. I am here today to ask the Council to consider joining our regional community choice provider, Clean Power Alliance, CPA. Community Choice Energy offers an electricity supply alternative to the utility monopoly of SoCal Edison and is an efficient and cost-effective solution for quickly reducing greenhouse gas emissions. It allows cities to help California meet our goal of carbon neutrality by 2045. Most importantly, it offers residents and businesses a second choice to freely choose where their energy is coming from, and residents can opt out or down at any time. Our region's community choice energy provider, CPA, partners with local cities to bring access to clean power in LA and Ventura counties. More competition leads to better prices and services, and that is exactly what is occurring in our region since CPA launched. CPA also allows low-income customers 100% green default cities to get 100% renewable energy at CPA's lower price clean energy rate. Another major difference with community choice energy agencies is that they reinvest profits right back into the communities that they serve. CPA has launched local programming that includes electric vehicle infrastructure funding, community solar, resiliency and grid management, building electrification financial and technical assistance, among other programs. We believe that the City of Port Hueneme and its citizens and organizations can benefit immensely from these local programs and will still have access to SCE's programs. We urge the City of Port Hueneme to join the cities of Oxnard, Ventura, Thousand Oaks, Camarillo, Moore Park, Simi Valley, and County of Ventura, who have been enjoying the choice to have an alternative to Southern California Edison for a few years. Soon, Santa Paula, who joined CPA last year, will also experience the benefits. A CPA already provides more customers with 100% renewable energy than any other utility in the country. We also urge the city to join CPA at 100% renewable energy default, as most of the cities of Ventura County have done. Community Choice Energy gives residents a choice, allows competition for better prices, and offers local programming that cities such as Port of Hueneme needs the transition to a cleaner and greener future. We urge the city of Port Hueneme to join Clean Power Alliance and join the millions in our region who have made the switch. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ferris.
Thank you.
We have one more final question.
Yes, you said that residents can choose to opt out. Is there a fee for them canceling the program?
No, there is no fee. So in the first 120 days, there is no fee. I think we don't ever charge a fee. I think Edison does charge a fee to take the customer back. Last time I checked, it was 50 cents. But I'd have to get someone to validate that for you.
Thank you.
But it's, if it even still exists, it's extremely nominal.
Okay. Is there another public comment?
Yes, there's a written public comment that I'll
Okay.
read. Dear council members, Climate First, Replacing Oil and Gas, Seafrog is a grassroots environmental nonprofit dedicated to combating the climate crisis by working to shape the transition from fossil fuels to a carbon-free economy in Ventura County. We are committed to the establishment of an economy that is sustainable, inclusive, and promotes renewable energy. Seafrog strongly supports the City of Port Hueneme's interest in learning more about Clean Power Alliance and urges the council to move forward with joining this community choice energy opportunity. This is one of the single largest things the city can do for the climate action and will make homes and electric vehicles even more sustainable. Moving to green power is a climate-forward and exciting way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. This will not only help ensure a comfortable, thriving future in Port Hueneme, but aligns with the city with California's statewide goal of 100% clean, renewable energy electricity system by 2045. As a coastal city in the fastest warming county in the contiguous United States, it is essential Port Hueneme moves forward with green energy. Port Hueneme would be joining the county of Ventura and the cities of Oxnard, Thousand Oaks, Ventura, Camarillo, Moore Park, Simi Valley, Ojai, and the most recently Santa Paula in utilizing efficient and cost-effective energy. Clean Power Alliance rates are typically competitive, allow Port Hueneme residents and businesses to choose where their energy comes from, and offer an electricity supply alternative to the utility monopoly of SoCal Edison, leading to more competition and better prices and services. When joining a community choice energy, local control is often an important factor for jurisdictions. The motto of Clean Power Alliance ensures the public and local jurisdictions have a choice and equitable representation. First, providing an alternative to the current electricity monopoly allows communities to take control of purchasing their own power and make energy decisions locally. Second, each jurisdiction member has exactly one representative on the Alliance Board, no matter the size of the jurisdiction. That means that Port Hueneme would have the same voting power on the Clean Power Alliance Board that a larger city like the city of Los Angeles has. This is an opportunity to make sustainability more equitable and accessible for Port Hueneme residents. By opting into 100% green default, low-income residents can access 100% renewable energy at a lower price clean energy rate. Additionally, Clean Power Alliance reinvests profits right back into their member communities. This means Port Hueneme could benefit from local programs in community solar resiliency and grid management, green workforce development, electric vehicle infrastructure, funding, and more. Seafrog urges the City Council to move forward learning more about Clean Power Alliance and eventually making the worthwhile investment of a feasibility study. To see these positive changes make a meaningful impact in the short term, please consider making this bold choice as soon as possible. Thank you for prioritizing the future of Port Hueneme by supporting clean energy, because as you know, business as usual is detrimental to our climate, health, and economy. With urgency, Haley Ehlers, Director. That concludes public comment.
Thank you, Georgiana. And if there's no more further questions and comments, thank you for the presentation. I'm really happy to see it on the agenda, as this is one of the things that I wanted to see last year and just couldn't do it. But thank you for being here today.
Thank you, and thank you for tolerating the funny lighting.
You're okay.
All
Thank
right.
you. That concludes
Have a
our,
good evening.
have a good evening. That concludes our presentations. We're now going to move on to the consent calendar. We will consider items on the consent calendar, which will be enacted in one motion unless a council member has a request to remove an item for discussion. May I have a motion and a second to approve our consent calendar?
I'd like to request that we pull, I don't know the number, but Lauterbach and Associates on the consent, 16.
Move to approve everything but item 16.
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem Perez,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Councilmember Hernandez,
Yes.
Councilmember McQueen Lejeune,
Yes.
and Mayor Martinez.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
I asked that item to be pulled because I'm kind of confused as to how procurement goes. I do know that the Bubbly Springs project is on a time-sensitive, very time-sensitive. So I was just wondering, do we go out to bid for architectural services, or how does this not have a RFP because it's $400,000? Thank you again.
Thank you. That is a very great question, and I do have an answer for you. So about 2 years ago, we went out to bid for architectural and design services, along with, if you recall, with the Mar Vista windows. That contract in itself went out for an RFP for a broad variety of things for the city. So we are going to go ahead and use the same contract in order to start the design process with this. If you recall, we had come to the council, I believe back in November, where Lauterbach had already started the design of the dog park, the snack bar. So we are just continuing that design in a more bigger and broader scheme.
So is it already a predetermined contract pricing, or like job order contracting, or is it just?
It was a procurement that went through the whole RFP, RFQ for qualifications, and it was awarded to Lauterbach and Associates based on their qualifications. Their amounts depend on the contract that is being given to them from the city.
So I don't know what the percentages of 400,000 is to the $7.5 million project, but I'm just trying to understand, how do we guarantee we're getting the best, lowest price for a government entity?
I can guarantee you that this project is probably below. Kevin?
The other thing that I was going to point out is that contracts for professional services are not dictated by lowest price. Unlike public projects and public works type things, there are a number of other qualifications that go into those. In essence, state law requires a fair and competitive process, which is what Director Basua is talking about in the original RFQ, where Lauterbach, I believe, was evaluated based on their qualifications and what they bring to the table, and not exclusively on lowest responsible bidder like you would get in a public works project.
Yeah, I think I remember that conversation. We talked about job order contracting and some other aspects of it, but anyways, it just stuck out like it's on the consent calendar and it's a big, big price, so.
No, that is a great question.
Any more
Can I
questions?
answer? Any more questions?
Comments?
Move to approve item 16.
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem Perez,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Councilmember Hernandez,
Yes.
Councilmember McQueen Lejeune,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. We're now going to move on to our last item, public hearing number 17, proposed ordinance prohibiting the use of sale of expanded polystyrene, EPS, and single-serve plastics throughout the city of Port Hueneme. Will staff please present the report? Kevin Spaulding?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Martinez. I thought I would get a little bit more time to prepare. So essentially back in June 7th of 2021, Surfrider gave a presentation to the city council, and it's been an ongoing process to evaluate and see what's happening with EPSs on both a state and county level and things of that nature. On September 7th, 2021, I evaluated the proposed ordinance from Surfrider and brought forth a series of recommendations which are spelled out in the staff report as to the direction our ordinance should go. Following that September 7th meeting, direction was given to Mr. Kinney, the city's economic consultant, to reach out to affected business owners in order to gauge any potential financial hardships and things of that nature that would affect transitioning away from single-use plastic foodwares and EPS products. At the February 22nd, 2022 meeting, Mr. Kinney presented additional information and essentially recommended that any proposed enforcement be deferred for 6 months under any draft ordinance, which tracks essentially what City of Oxnard, our neighbor, has done with respect to their ordinance. In addition, on June 30th, 2022, the state of California enacted Senate Bill 54, which was one of the items of legislation we were watching to see what the state did with respect to EPS and single-use plastics and whatnot. And essentially the way that the state addressed the issue was to ensure that certain percentages of EPS and plastics were recyclable by a date set fairly far off in the future. So in essence, 65% of recovered EPS materials be recycled by January 1st, 2032. Unfortunately, what the state did not do is really focus on how do we curb the amount of pollutants being discharged right now. And so this proposed ordinance would ban the provision or distribution of EPS foodwares by food providers. It would ban the manufacture and distribution of non-encapsulated EPS within the city's territorial jurisdiction. It would allow for food providers and third-party deliverers or vendors to provide opt-in mechanisms whereby customers could request single-use foodware that is composed of non-plastic or bioplastic and exclusively biodegradable materials. It would allow for an exemption for certain types of EPS materials under very certain circumstances, including packaging materials from outside the city that are not repackaged within the city, wholly encapsulated EPS containers for transport through interstate commerce, construction materials that are required to meet building codes and regulations, and EPS products that are medically necessary, etc. Some of the discussion that we had on September 7th, 2021 was concerns about interference with interstate commerce as well as other federal regulations. I'm thinking specifically USDA, FDA packaging, things of that nature, where compliance with federal programs might require the use of expanded polystyrenes, and we don't want to get into a war with interstate commerce and federal agencies. So this ordinance, the proposed ordinance tonight, takes care of some of that and lists those exemptions specifically so that we don't, the goal was to be slightly more inclusive. And also in preparing the ordinance, I reviewed the County of Ventura's ordinance as well as the City of Oxnard's ordinance, essentially on the premise that the more similar the City of Port Hueneme is, there won't be huge gaps in enforcement or major compliance issues across territorial jurisdictions, so that it would protect our watersheds more evenly throughout the county. In addition, I've set forth enforcement mechanisms in the ordinance that do not take effect until November 3rd, 2023, assuming that this ordinance is adopted at the second reading at the next meeting. This 6-month lenient amnesty period, so to speak, would allow for city staff to engage in education as well as outreach to make everyone aware. It would also allow businesses that currently have polystyrene to completely deplete their supplies and make that transition, so that we can ensure that this goes off right the first time without a massive enforcement effort. Ultimately, the goal here is not to punish offending businesses if not necessary, it's to gain compliance. So this was seen as the best year period. The administrative citation process, we're essentially going to enforce this ordinance through the city's administrative citations procedures, with a $100 fine for first violation, $200 fine for seconds within a 1-year period, and $500 fines for subsequent violations within a 1-year period. Other than that, I am available for any questions.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I don't have any questions. I have a comment, though. I understand that regardless of how I decide to go, I know that this is going to pass. based on my colleagues' opinions of it. My only concern is that when I requested the study and connection with our businesses to find out how this was going to impact them financially, that study was not done appropriately, and in fact did not discuss with our businesses whatsoever. And the items that were brought to compare were not items that any of our businesses use as it is. So I was quite concerned about that because this is going to impact our small businesses more than anything. And I believe that we need to consider them. So I would recommend a longer period of enforcement because of that fact, and because I don't know if 6 months is going to be enough time, but that's just all the comment I have on it.
Was it 6 months or a year?
It's 6 months post effectiveness, so it would go into effect on November 23rd, 2023. If council were inclined to amend this ordinance, I would request it be read into the record at this hearing. Otherwise, we have to start this process all over again and have another public hearing.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments?
I'd like to make a comment. I'm impressed throughout the county when I see businesses moving away from a styrofoam, as they call it, without an ordinance. And I think that most people understand the level of pollution and trash is it's just too much. And this product is top on the list. I mean, it's probably rivals cigarette butts. And I think it's really important to regionally have a coordination, so to speak. I think the city of Oxnard, and I know you did the due diligence to kind of make it all work together. So I think I would be in favor of trying to extending that that period of time to get acclimated to the new rules. And so I would be willing to do that. I don't know if we want to go to a year might be better, but I would also at the same time that we aggressively encourage businesses to comply as quickly as possible, because I would hope that if we extend it to a year, then businesses are go, well, we'll just wait for a year before we implement it. But I think the education is really important, and I've seen it in other areas where restaurants are doing it because they see the need for it. So I would recommend extending the period.
And this is my bad, but right now we're only taking questions. So are there any questions? Councilmember Hernandez? Do you have a question?
I have no questions. I just have a comment.
Okay, I'm gonna hold off comments. I would like to open up the public hearing. Are there any public comments regarding this item?
There are no public comments.
All right, then I'm gonna go ahead and close the public hearing, and I'm gonna read the recommendation. The recommendation is to introduce for first reading, waiving further reading, and approve an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Port Hueneme, California, adding a new Chapter 8 to Article 5, beginning with Section 5630 to the City of Port Hueneme Municipal Code for the purposes of prohibiting the sale, manufacturing, and distribution of designated expanded polystyrene products, and make a determination of exemption under the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, pursuant to CEQA Guidelines Section 1506B3 of the Title 14 of the California Code of Regulations. May I have a motion and a second?
I move to approve.
I'll second that.
How do we include?
If council would like to amend the 6-month operative date and leniency, I would recommend that council specifically have a motion that says Section 5636 shall be amended to make the first 1 year following adoption of this ordinance will be an education and awareness period with no enforcement other than written warnings.
So motion to amend Section 5636.
Wait a minute. I have my hand up for a comment.
We'll have a
hasn't called comments.
discussion after we get a first and a second. And I think we just did,
Well,
right?
this has to do with the motion though. So, I mean, the other council members had opportunity to weigh in on extending this deadline or the implementation, and I haven't had a chance to weigh in at all.
I will allow it, Councilmember Hernandez.
Thank you. Okay, so I do echo Councilmember Perez's concern over the lack of outreach to our businesses. And I think rather than extend the implementation deadline, that we make a concerted effort through this public hearing process to outreach to all businesses that we are considering this ordinance soon, so that they have an opportunity to weigh in and tell us whether or not this is going to be problematic for them, whether it's not going to be economically problematic for them, and hear their concerns. Because right now we're just assuming that this is going to be difficult for them. We've only heard through other agencies who have talked to jurisdictions that have implemented this ordinance that it's not been a heavy impact on businesses, but we don't know for sure. So I would rather not extend the implementation date, but I would rather see, sorry, it's almost midnight here. I would rather see us make a concerted effort to do outreach to the business community so we get a real feel of what the impact is going to be on them.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Hernandez. Councilmember McQueen Lejean, would you like to comment?
I didn't really have a comment, but since you asked, I just wanted to put it out there that we do have a responsibility to our environment, for one. But with that, we have a responsibility to ensure that we're communicating to our community as well. And I think I'll echo what Councilmember Hernandez just stated. I think it's important enough that I'm not really sure what an extra 6 months. I know we're all talking about outreach, but I think that if we really took the time to get the information, that we can do that. I just don't want to continue to go down the path of pushing things out when I think it's important that we take some kind of action. Yeah, we can go ahead and do a motion on that.
Okay, I might as well comment on this too. I've been looking forward to this ordinance scene as we're a beach city, and when I can, I accompany Councilmember Gama on the beach cleanups, and it's ridiculous how much plastic's on the beach. Yeah, and styrofoam. So I think we already got a first and a second. Can we take a vote?
Councilmember Hernandez? I'm sorry, Councilmember Hernandez. Can you?
Is this a vote on the initial motion on the motion I made?
Yes.
Yeah, and actually, I'm sorry, Councilmember Perez, would you like us to
Yeah, I
have a
would like to
discussion?
consider, well, no, I wanted to consider a motion to extend the time, but
It is possible for council to consider multiple motions at the same time. So if a motion to extend the time were to be made to 1 year and that motion received a second, the first vote we would be taking would be on the latest received motion, which would be to extend the time for 1 year. And then if that motion fails, then we would consider the original motion. It works backwards.
Okay, you can make a motion.
so motion to extend the time, to amend and extend the time to section 5636 to include up to a year for, is that good enough?
No enforcement.
For no enforcement.
Can I ask a quick question? Councilmember Perez, I think I just heard you say up to a year. Are you saying
Yeah,
a year?
for enforcement, for them to, a year, to be enforceable.
I would say a year certain.
A year
just so that
certain,
it's not
okay.
up to.
Okay, yes, a year certain for enforcement.
for enforcement, but not implementation.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, I mean, that includes the same thing.
The way that the way that this ordinance is written is that this ordinance will take effect 30 days after the second reading, which second reading should occur at the next April 3rd meeting. From that period, from the date the ordinance takes effect, as it's currently written, there will be no enforcement, meaning no administrative citations for a period of 6 months. As the way the ordinance is currently written, the first possible administrative citation could be issued on November 3rd, 2023.
So I'm asking the enforcement to be extended a year. Of enforcement.
So that sounds like 1 year and 6 months.
No, in essence, the way that it would calculate out, and I don't have a date calculator in front of me, is it would be 6 months from November 3rd, 2023 would be the first date that an administrative citation could be issued.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Sorry about that, Mayor Pro Tem Perez.
Right, so hearing none, motion fails, and we'll consider the original motion made by Councilmember Hernandez, which was to approve staff recommendation. So Councilmember Hernandez,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Councilmember McQueen LeJean,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Perez.
No.
Motion passes 4-1, Mayor Pro Tem Perez voting no.
Okay, we don't have any business items, so we're gonna move on to city manager comments and reports.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, everyone. I'll keep this short because of the time. Public Works wanted to remind you, or wanted me to remind you that in addition to the beach pads being repaired for the 75th anniversary, the Landscape Division also completed the palm tree trimming out at the beach last week. This is done every 3 years, and so that's done for our event as well. And as Councilmember Gama already mentioned, but Streets Division is rolling out traffic signal enhancements to basically make them more visible to everybody, similar to what Caltrans is doing and whatnot. So, and they certainly do work. And then just a reminder that we will have the pictorial postmark event here at City Hall from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This coming Friday. And that is being put on by the U.S. Post Office, and you'll be able to bring stamped mail and get your mail stamped or postmarked with our special postmark for the 75th anniversary. Also a reminder that is actually the city's 75th birthday on this coming Friday. And then, of course, Saturday, as everybody knows, we'll be having our big event down at the beach with the parade starting at 10 a.m. Actual presentations, festivities start around 11 o'clock and go through until about 5 o'clock. So there'll be more details coming out on social media. I'll be informing the council more as we get the all the details from Maya and whatnot. So stay tuned. It's going to be a very busy rest of the week preparing for this. We're supposed to have nice weather, so that's a good thing too. And then finally, Lupe wanted to, or our finance director wanted to make sure that everybody knew that our business licenses are transitioning from HDL to our new OpenGov platform, which will be hopefully more user-friendly for our businesses, and that will occur on April 1st. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Now, council member reports and comments. We'll start with Councilmember McQueen LeJean.
The only thing I have to report is a couple of things. So I did get an opportunity to meet with Ali Gashemi, the APCD officer, and had a very good a brief of the organization. He gave me a tour of the facility. I'm looking forward to participating in Gold Coast Transit's strategic planning session coming on I believe it's the 5th of April. And as you all know, Council Member Hernandez and I are at the RDP 21 event in DC. Having a great time, learning a lot. We had a full schedule today. And I hear I don't want to say full, but we're scheduled to have lunch at 3:00. So if that says anything, that says something about our schedule. So we have a full schedule tomorrow. I think we're going to end up going to the Pentagon twice, maybe. We'll be going to the Washington Naval Yard. And then on Wednesday, Wednesday will be our last day, and we'll be talking to some of our state and state representatives, our can I say again that it's 12:02 and my mind is not working right now? I'm really sorry about that.
It's okay.
But anyway, I'll end it there. But just really busy. They have our schedules full, and so excited to just do what we have to do and get back and share with you all. Over.
Councilmember Hernandez?
Yeah, we're a bit, not only is it 12:00 here, but we're still jet lagged from coming in from yesterday, so bear with us. I don't have that many comments. I attended the march in Oxnard commemorating the labor action, the Japanese and Latino labor action that occurred, I think 130 years ago in Ventura County. It was a really good event and a lot of inspirational message there about taking care of our farm workers and labor rights. And it was hosted by the city of Oxnard. It was a good event. The other thing I just wanted to mention is that during the course of this meeting, we were not able, and I'm just speaking as a member of the public in this case, if I was viewing this meeting, we weren't able to see the speakers at the dais, or at the podium, I should say. So if we could be more mindful of that as they're going through meetings and what the public is seeing. And the presentation by Mr. Madelon, if those could have been put on slides, that would have been very helpful as well, since he handed out the documents. We didn't get to necessarily see those, and I noticed they were on my email, but I didn't look till later. And then I would like to have copies of the presentations, especially a copy from Mr. Ali, his presentation. If we could get those in our inboxes, that would be quite helpful. And then finally, I just want to thank Kevin Spalding, our city attorney. Mr. Spalding, thank you so much for working on the EPS ordinance. I know it was a long time coming and you had some other projects that kept you fairly busy, and but I'm so happy that you finally got it done, and as well as some of the other environmental folks out there. I appreciate your hard work on that. I just wanted to make sure you were acknowledged for that. Thank you.
Councilmember Gama?
Thank you, Mayor Martinez. Yeah, I want to thank Councilmember Hernandez and Councilmember McQueen-Lejean for being willing to go to Washington and stay up late and work with all our partners out there. I really appreciate that, and I hope you have a wonderful time. Hope you get to see some really interesting stuff out there, because I've never been, so looking forward to hear from you on that. I attended the Beacon meeting, and I will be making a request for an agenda item where we invite Dr. Kiki Patch from Cal State University Channel Islands to present on sand management. She made a wonderful presentation, and the education aspect of it is extremely valuable, not only to us as elected officials, but also to our residents and our librarians and our lifeguards. And Dr. Patch is just a wonderful presenter, and we feel like we're blessed to have her a part of the Beacon community. So, and that's it for me.
Mayor Pro Tem Perez?
Yes, I'm going to give two updates. The Landscape Committee, we had a really productive meeting last week and talking about our plant palette and what trees and shrubs and everything that we're going to include. And it's going to be quite extensive, but native species, drought tolerant, and items that I think everyone will appreciate. The next meeting that we're going to be having will be actually getting into policy and discussing how to change that and talking about our community forum that we want to put together to make sure the community has an invested interest in this as well. And I want to do a brief overview of the city manager recruitment. There's some important dates to come up. April 13th will be virtual interviews with a local panel. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Councilmember Hernandez, but each one of us will be selecting someone to appoint to that panel.
I think that we were requested to submit names of
Panel members,
potential panelists. So if the council has any members that they would like to see on the interview panel, I'm not sure what the process should be.
Yeah, I don't think he has mentioned the process, but I guess the
I
best
think
way.
he just asked those from us, from you and I,
Okay.
but
I guess get them to us.
maybe
and
just
we
give
can-
them to Kevin so we avoid a Brown Act violation.
There you go. Email your
Yeah,
panel
email your
member to Kevin.
recommendations to Kevin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
that'll
thanks for
be-
reporting on that, Councilmember.
That'll be
Perez.
interview the 7 candidates. And then the next date will be April 24th, which will be our in-person final council interview of the top 3 candidates. And I just wanted to give some information about the applicants. Right now, there are a total of, at least as the date of this presentation, there were 59 applicants. The portal closed on the 16th. There are 27 that meet the minimum requirements. 14 have had phone interviews already. Of those 14, there are 11 that have really strong experience. And 13 of them have public sector experience. 33 of them did not meet the minimum qualifications. And community surveys that went out, there were 31 community members that responded. The employee survey that went out, there were 21 employees that responded. And that's all I have so far. Thank you.
All right, and I'll make it quick. For Reach, I was appointed on the executive board for the Wainimi Beach Festival. And then in terms of Sister City, waiting on an agenda item. I think it's going to be placed next city council meeting. And so hopefully we'll just be moving forward. We're going to now request items for future agenda items. Would anybody like to make a request?
I would. I'd like to request that we invite Dr. Kiki Patch to make a presentation on sand management.
Second.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Councilmember Hernandez,
Yes.
Councilmember McQueen Lejeune,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Perez.
Yes.
And Mayor Martinez.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, any other requests? All right, so I'd like to make a request, make a data request from Edison and to actually spend the $10,000 to conduct a feasibility study for joining CPA.
Second.
Mayor Martinez,
Yes.
Councilmember McQueen Lejeune.
Yes.
Sorry, Councilmember Hernandez,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Perez,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay.
Okay. Before we adjourn, I'd just like to remind everyone that today's the first day of spring. So I think it was a really nice to have these items on the agenda concerning the environment. And I'd also like to say happy birthday to Gama, whose birthday was last Thursday. I'd like to adjourn the meeting. The time is now 9:09 p.m. Pacific time, of course. The next regular meeting is scheduled for Monday, April 3rd, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. Everybody have a good night.
Thank you.
And drive safe.
you.